Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. The next episode on the F14 project. I've got some work done on it. I got all the parts primered like you saw in the last video. I also got the vertical tails bolted on and hooked up and the forward fuselage glued on. Afterwards I went around, and I'll show you in a second, but I filled in all the lines that are big and don't look pretty. So let's turn the camera around and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's start at the back. So you can see the verticals are installed, and when you install them, there's a gap all the way around them, and has kind of these ugly mounts and stuff with screws in them and everything. I understand that obviously I'm somewhat committed at this point. When you seal all this stuff off, it makes a mess if you have to pull one of these servos out for any reason. So yeah, so it should look a lot nicer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to just brush over these bare filler spots with polyurethane just to seal it, just one coat, and then I'll primer it. I do a little bit of dry sanding, and the primer actually worked pretty good. It says it's wet sandable, but it did clog the paper just a little bit, dry sanding, but honestly it wasn't terrible. You can see kind of where I started sanding a few spots. So up here at the front, got the forward fuselage glued on. You can see where I sanded through some of the primer. And it's actually, man, it's way smoother now that it's been sanded once. I'm sure I'll prime it and sand it one more time, and the panel line should be pretty well filled. They won't be 100% filled, but I kind of like that look. So I don't like it perfect, because then you can't find any of the panel lines to retrace them on. So anyways, so here's what I've done with the hatch area. So with my last F14 and with this one, I plan on running 6S 5800s or 6S 6000s for, 4.5, 5.5 minute flight times. The only way to do that and to get the airplane to CG at the same time is to basically not use the factory rear battery mount, which normally would screw onto those little plates in here, and it's kind of high up. It's made for like a 4,000 milliamp battery, so a much smaller pack. So to get to CG, what I've done here is, let's see if I can get to focus. So there's normally a wall of foam back there, and I've cut that out. You can see the wing spar back there, the crossover piece of metal, and the wing swing actuators right back there. So I've taken out all that foam back there, and I've taken out the little tab mounts for the stock rear battery holder, and then I've pretty much just glued a piece of plywood down there for another battery tray. Now I can get the battery to come all the way back here to the wing spar, basically. So what that allows me to do is to get the CG proper with the much heavier batteries, and it also gets the battery weight lower in the airplane, which helps with the balance of the plane. You don't want the weight up high, it makes it unstable. So if you can keep the weight lower, it'll make the plane a little bit more stable, especially since this is a shoulder / high wing airplane. So I did that, and also you'll notice this is not the stock hatch the way it looks. So let me show you what I've done here. So I've actually cut the back of it off, and now it'll just use the magnets. I might put a hatch on it. We'll see how well it holds. But the reason I did that was on my last one, and this one I noticed as well, since this is normally connected to the hatch and it's got like a latch back here and stuff, I noticed that like these parts right here would always be kind of spread out, and they didn't really fit all that great. And plus I don't like seeing like big gaps and stuff everywhere up top. Kind of anal about that. So what I decided to do was just to cut it off and glue this all on, so there'll be less seams, it'll look a little bit nicer, and also make the fuselage a little bit stronger. It's kind of a bending area right there with all the weight of the batteries in here, so that'll stiffen up the fuselage just a little bit. But and it's really not that hard to get into, because all I need to get in here to do is just set the battery in there. Let me grab one real quick. So this one will go all the way back in there, and then the ESC wires will be out here, and I can just hook it up. So I'll just have a little bit of Velcro back in there, and I'll just slide it in there and set it down on it. And the second pack will be sitting right in here. So anyways, it really didn't hurt accessibility too bad. It is a little bit nicer having that huge open hatch in the back, but it's not 100% necessary. And I like the way it looks now much better. So anyways, I've done some sanding, and I'm gonna get ready to, like I said, seal off all these areas where I filled in the seams and whatnot. So I'll get all that stuff sealed up, and we'll get some more primer on this thing. I don't plan on flying it until, well, I plan on priming it and getting most of the bodywork done before I fly it, but it won't be 100% finished. It's not going to be painted. The cockpit probably won't be done, but it'll be pretty much ready to paint and ready to detail by the time I fly it. So I don't want to put a ton of work into it and scrape it up or ding it up while I'm getting it all dialed in. So another thing I've been working on today is the landing gear. So if you have an F14, you know that these come natural metal in color, and F14s have white gear. So I went ahead and painted all the struts. This is the stock nose assembly. I did cut about 1/4 inch off of the spring for the nose gear, so it's a little bit softer. I did the same thing on my first F14. I found that the nose gear was just a little too stiff for me, especially flying off of dirt. You need some suspension in there. I also did the same with the mains. I cut a little bit off of the main springs, so they'll sit a little bit lower because the plane kind of sits a little too high in the back as it comes from the factory. I also set up my RC Geek center burners on my fans. I still have to reinstall my rotors. I had to clean the shrouds and bug guts and grass off of my shrouds and blades, so I got to reinstall them and balance them and all that stuff. But yeah, so I got the gear all ready to go. I got these super sweet hubcaps on 2 3/4 inch Robart wheels, so they're rubber and they're squishy. So a couple good things about that is they look scale, and they have some shock absorption to them. They're not stiff like a stock foam tire is, or the rubber ones that come with this airplane. But also, one thing you'll notice is that the stock wheels in this plane don't sound too bad because they're metal with bearings, but like on a model with all plastic wheels with foam tires, when they're going down the runway, they make all kinds of noise, and they sound kind of toyish. And these tires are basically silent on the runways, so you don't get all that kind of clackety, rough sounding noise you get with a real hard tire. So I just glued the hubcaps on with the glue that comes with the model. It's like a rubber cement. It works pretty well. So these puppies they look perfect for an F14, and they're gonna look totally sweet on the plane. So anyways, we'll get this thing sealed up and get some more primer on it, and then I'll probably start reassembly, and then we'll get it ready to fly. So I'll check it back in after we get some more. Okay, so you're probably wondering why it's black now. Got everything painted in black primer. So this is a technique that's used to basically highlight the low areas, so the areas that are dipped down. So what we'll see here after we start sanding is anywhere there's black left over is a low spot. So you know to either keep sanding till the black is gone, or add more filler, so that way it'll fill up those spots. In the automotive industry, this is called a guide coat. So you'll like spray on a different color and block sand it or whatever. And so anyways, it'll show you where all the low spots are at. So we're gonna wet sand this, and we'll come back in just a second and I'll show you how. Okay, so I just did a real quick wet sand on here. I'm gonna sand it some more, but I just kind of wanted to show you how it looks. So you can make out all the panel lines and stuff still, but I can barely feel them. You can even see where the decal was. But it's really, really smooth. I'll tell you what, I'm really impressed with that primer. It's a very high build, meaning that it's very thick. It adds a lot of thickness to the paint, which is good as long as you're sanding it. Because if you just leave it on there, it's just going to be a bunch of extra weight. But what we're doing is we're using that primer to help fill in all the foam texture. So you can see, like, right here, it's almost perfectly flat. You don't see any black. Whereas out here, you still see quite a bit of foam texture, and you can feel it. And same thing over here, it's pretty much like a smooth fiberglass surface. So anyways, so we're going to keep sanding here, and I'll show you how it looks when it's all finished. Okay, so here it is, basically finished sanded. So we can start to see some of the original paint underneath here and the decals and stuff. Man, it is smooth. You could paint this with a gloss paint and it would probably look pretty good. I'm sure you're still going to see a little bit of foam texture, but you're really never going to get rid of all of it. It's always going to kind of be there, but it should look really good. Yep, so that's it for this step. I think that'll be it for this video. After this, I'm going to seal it with a sealer primer, and then I'll probably assemble the airplane and get it flying, and then we'll worry about paint and all that afterwards. But I'll do a whole set of videos on the paint process and weathering and other stuff like that. So check back in, and hopefully we'll have some updates with the airplane ready to fly here pretty soon. Thanks, and we'll see you next.